As you can see, there's kind of a screenshot right here of a PDF document that we sent out yesterday. What we kind of wanted to do is create kind of a one-stop shop for you guys with little tidbits of the main information to the policy, but also live links. So on the PDF version, you should be able to click on any of the hot links on there, and it'll take you directly to a lot of tools that are on our Region 16 PFE website. So we're going to kind of use this as our drive for today's presentation. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to touch on was what exactly is parent and family engagement? And I know that all of us really know what that means for the most part, but this really does drive our policy in the way that one of the biggest things we have to remember is to always have that two-way meaningful communication. So providing the parents opportunities to really give us feedback and to really work with us in order to create this policy for our school and our districts. And we did go ahead and provide for you guys this statute just as a quick reference. And then the second thing that we move into is the language and format. So as you can see, all of the information needs to be understandable in a format to the extent practicable in a language that a parent can understand. And really, guys, that is just you doing your absolute best and your LEAs doing their absolute best to make sure that they can get this information from the policy and some of our main documents like our compacts and our newsletters in a language that your parents do understand. For the most part, we do a really good job at doing our documents in English and in Spanish. However, it's really important for you to understand the demographic, and if you might have a couple of parents who speak a language other than English and Spanish. And so you can really reach out to any of your resources in your community. A lot of times local churches have translators, you might reach out to them. And if all else fails, Google Translate's a really good tool. We use that a lot, and it's fairly correct. And then if you're still struggling, you can also just get with your parent and see what really works for them. You might even have your child help with translating for your parent to the most part to try to get some of that vital information to them.
I want to clarify one little piece on the this left-hand piece. What is parent-family engagement? The verb that you see in there does come from the statute, but that particular item actually comes from old regulatory guidance, but it still applies today. So two-way meaningful communication is in the statute, other verbiage is in the statute, but that specific text is not in section 1116. So don't go looking for it, but it is applicable to what parent and family engagement is as we try to put that program into practice in our schools and districts. So just want to clarify that.
Katie, this is Terry. I want to remind you and Skip that if one is talking, the other needs to mute. Otherwise, y'all sound like you're in a well and it's very hard to hear you. Going back to the language and format, for those of you that may have been at ESSA last year, you'll recall that Corey Green talked about this a little bit. And he said, oftentimes we spend so much of our time wanting to be perfect in our translations that we end up thinking, if I can't do a perfect job, then I'm not going to do it at all. And that's when he really talked a lot about using the parents, using Google Translate, that it's better to give them something that will give them the information than to worry about being perfect. And so that's really what Katie was talking about. Don't feel like you always have to go pay somebody to do every little thing. Get it out there. These parents appreciate the information, even if it's not absolutely perfect. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Terry. All right, so now we're to the section 3, which is what is the policy? So the policy is really just a statement that describes the parent and family engagement program. And the key part to this is the partnership. Like I said before, we really want parents to take part in this, to create this policy with your LEAs, to make sure that we're meeting the needs for your parents, for your families, for for the overall child's success. And then who needs a written parent and family engagement policy? So every district receiving Title I Part A funds and every campus receiving Title I Part A funds, school-wide and targeted assistance, does need a written parent policy. For the most part, if your district only has a couple of campuses that are receiving Title I Part A school-wide and targeted assistance funds, then not your entire district needs a written policy, but your district would need a written policy, and then those specific campuses receiving those funds would need a written policy. Sometimes people will ask, do you need two separate documents for single campus districts? If you have like a K through 12, you could only have one written policy, but you would need to look at the requirements under the district policy and under the campus policy to make sure that you have all those requirements. So one document would suffice. Just make sure that you're meeting both of those needs in that one written document. All right, so me and Skip have put together.
Katie, I'm gonna interrupt. Zan Wilson, have you been able to join us yet? Because my information says that you are part of the our attendees, but I have a chat request that says you're not. Ah, yes, she is. Okay, great. Thank you, Zan. Sorry to interrupt you, Katie. I do apologize.
That's okay. All right, guys, so we wanted to just make sure that if you had any questions throughout our presentation, we could offer some of that time for you to have some of those questions answered, but we also wanted to check to make sure we're all kind of on the same page as far as some of the most basic things. So we've got together some FAQs, and we're going to do a quick poll right now. You can see that our first question is up on the screen. I'm going to pop a poll up. All right, and you should see a poll with our first question on there. Can you see that? And give you about a couple of seconds to answer this poll. And we'll see what everybody has to say. All right, I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds. I see we have a couple of people who haven't yet answered. All right. And I'm going to share our results. So as you can see, everybody does know this. So who is responsible for developing the PFE policy? And everybody chose 100%, all of the above. So you do have different people and different staff members that are responsible for creating that PFE policy. It just depends on your campus and your district. Sometimes you'll have superintendents who take part in creating this policy, and sometimes you don't. You also need to make sure to focus on what your actual demographic is, and you make sure that you have a representative group for your actual parents to take part in creating that policy. So if you have 50% Caucasian parent or students and then 50% Hispanic students, make sure you have at least two of each ethnicity in the time that this policy is being created to make sure that your demographic is equally representative. All right, let's go to our second question. And I am going to provide this poll. All right, so I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to look at this question. In what language must the PFE policy be written in? All right, I'm going to give you about 5 more seconds. And let's see everybody's answers. Awesome. So for the most part, we all did choose any language so far as it's practicable. Like Terry said, just make sure you're doing your best to try to get that information translated the best you can to those specific languages in your area. All right. And now I'm going to hand this over to Skip, and he's going to give you your second set of questions.
Katie, go back that one slide, please. Now that question is a little tricky because the question does say, in what language must it be written? Actually, the statute says that the policy must be provided, distributed and provided to all families. So I won't say it was a trick question, but it could be one where you'd say, well, we only need to have it written in English or in English and Spanish, as long as we provide it in other languages. The key is, as Katie just said, insofar as it's practicable, we need to provide that policy to our parents in a language and format that they understand. Written is ideal, but if it can't be written, then it can be an oral translation or oral presentation so that the parents know the content of the policy. All right, so moving on. Thank you, Katie. All right, this is a yes/no question. So this should be in your participant box. When you click on that, on mine, that's at the bottom of the screen. When you click on the participant box, you should have be able to raise your hand. So I'll prompt you here. A district has 20 campuses, but only 5 receive Title I Part A funds. Do all the campuses need to develop a parent and family engagement policy? If you believe the answer is yes, raise your hand, please. I think I'll see your hands raised when you do that. I think I see it. Let's see, where are your little hands today? And if you think the answer is no, raise your other hand instead. Okay, yeah. All right, well, some of you were yeses, some were no's, but Katie, what did we say here? No, this is probably what you said. No, only the 5 campuses receiving Title I Part A funds actually need to develop a parental involvement, a parent and family engagement policy. The other campuses, it'd be a best practice if they did decide to create a parent and family engagement policy, but it's not required. Only those receiving Title I Part A funds.
But Skip, just to verify though, that even if there's just 5, they still would need the district policy. You wouldn't need the campus policy at the non-Title I schools, but those 5 schools that do receive funds would need a policy as well as the district.
Right, correct. Next question. Can a single campus district have only one written policy? That'd be like a K through 12 campus, or if it's a smaller campus, like we have some out here in West Texas, where they're a K through 8, and we might even have one that's a K through 6. So that's the whole campus for that district. Can a single campus district have only one written policy? Again, this is a yes or no question. If you think the answer is yes, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Yes, they only have to have one written policy. Ooh. If you think no, they really have to have a district policy and a campus policy, raise your hand. Okay. All right. Katie? Yes, if you're a single campus district, you only have to have one policy, but that one policy does need to include all the requirements of the district policy and of the school policy. So it would be a little bit more robust policy than your typical school policy or your typical district policy, because it's containing all those requirements. But yes, one policy is sufficient. Very good. Thank you. So what's required in the district parent and family engagement policy? These are the items that are required at a minimum in the policy. These are simply the bullet points. Obviously, when a district develops its policy, it has to include more detail. It has to be has to provide more information. It has to be written in such a way that when parents read it, they understand what the goal, the intention, the purpose is of this parent and family engagement plan. When a community member reads this, they need to be able to understand, oh, this is what the school is trying to do in parent and family engagement. Because we want to include our community members. And so you might want to share with them the policies so they would understand how they can be involved and how they can be integral in developing a parent and family engagement program. So you want to have it written in yes, we already said before, in a language and a format that parents can understand, but you want to provide enough detail, enough information so that the policy is sensible and understandable to those who read it. So these are the items that must be addressed in the policy. You must address how you're going to involve parents and members in the development of the policy. So we need to remember that the policies are not to be developed in a silo during the summer, where the principal finally has a couple hours at the end of the day and they knock out the changes in the policy and then present it to the parents and say, I hope you like it. No, we need to find ways to incorporate parents into the development of the policy, into the revision of the policy through evaluation and through receiving actual input from the parents, through surveys, through anecdotal conversations. We need to find ways to gather their information, gather their ideas, and let them be involved in the review, revision, and development of the policy that is presented to the school or to the district. And then this information that's in the policy is then incorporated into the district improvement plan. And so the parents have a role in that whole process. Secondly, the policy needs to address how the district will assist schools to implement the plan. I realize in many cases, there might be some activities that the district will do at a district level, like a district-wide parent conference or some sort of district-wide event. But many times, the most significant role is for the district to be assisting the individual schools to make sure the schools implement the PFE program and how they can provide resources and assistance to the schools to have effective programs. So you would just want to address what is the role of the district and how the district is going to partner with their schools to make sure that the parent and family engagement program is successful. Thirdly, this is really kind of a building capacity requirement, but you can see it here, assist the schools and parents to build capacity. It is in the building capacity requirements, which is section E, and we'll do a training about that later this fall. That's number 3, but it's also included here in the policy. And the district, as well as the school, has a responsibility to build the capacity, to build the confidence, to provide training for parents to develop skills so that they're able to assist their child to be successful in education. Because remember, the primary goal or outcome of Title I Part A is to close the achievement gap. We want to elevate the low performing students and close that gap between the high performing students and the low performing students. And an important piece of that is working with our parents effectively so that they know what they can do at home, how they can best encourage their child, not just to be at school, although attendance, as we know, is so important, but also how they can help with their child with their homework. Not that they're going to do their homework, not that they're going to teach them calculus or maybe not even algebra, but nevertheless, to know how to best encourage them, how to help them with literacy skills, how to help them with technology. Right now, that's critical technology. And we know there are some struggles in areas about what kinds of platforms and what kinds of resources. Well, we need to train our parents so they know what's expected of them and how they can best help their child. So the policy needs to address what they're going to do to develop the capacity of their parents during the next school year. The district also has the role of coordinating programs and services. There's Title I Part A, but in some districts beyond Title I Part A, you have Title I Part C migrant, Title III Part A, EL. You have McKinney-Vento homeless, IDEA, for special ed. You have a whole variety of programs that are federally funded. And many of them have, or all of them have to some extent, a parent participation component. And so it's best if the district can work with these programs, like I said a few moments ago, to get out of their silos, to cross the hall, to talk to one another, and think about how can we coordinate our activities so that we're all working together for student success. Now, I realize you maybe can't do that with every program or every activity or every meeting, but how can we do that, at least for some activities, to take the burden of meetings off of staff members and off of parents, to take that burden of multiple meetings off these people, and how we can work together to create more of a more uniform presentation of our, and a more holistic presentation of our parent and family engagement program. So let's find ways to coordinate our services. You see down there, conduct with meaningful involvement of parents an annual evaluation your policy needs to address. How are they going to evaluate their parent and family engagement policy and their overall PFE program? I know in many districts and schools, what happens is the district, it's a district requirement, but they entrust it to their schools to put out surveys, to have focus group meetings, to have various types of conversations with their parents, to gather data, to look at their telephone logs, to look at their discipline reports, and to gather this data and to come up with some ideas about, you know, what needs to be done differently or what needs to be done better. And that information then needs to be shared back to the district. So the district has the role to evaluate the PFE program, the policy and the program, and so we incorporate that into the policy. And also one of the keys to this is that as we do the evaluation, we're trying to determine where are the barriers in our schools and in our district. What is limiting our parents from participating more? It might be cultural and language issues. It might be lack of transportation. It might be due to some sort of economic problem that might be due to a medical or physical disability or limitation. But where are the barriers? What could we do differently that will assist our parents to become more actively involved so that our parents could truly eventually become partners, advocates, and decision makers? What can we do differently so that our parents are able to help their children to be more successful? And just what can we do in general that will enable our program to be more robust? So we're looking for that kind of information in the evaluation. So address that in some way. It doesn't have to be word for word like that, but we want to show that the evaluation has some intention to it and integrity to it. And then just lastly, we want to involve parents in the overall activities of the school, not just the meetings that we put on for them, but we want to have meetings that are inclusive with them, but also we want to have parents who are involved in the school as decision makers. And so we may want to have a parent advisory board. That's not required, but it is a best practice. So it's a best practice at either the district level or at the school level. So you might want to have a parent advisory board, or you might want to say, what can we do to really make our PTA or PTO far more effective? What can we do to get to use our booster clubs more creatively and effectively? Just think about ways in which what a district can do differently to really include parents so that it really enhances the thinking, the vision, and drives the decision making there at the district. So these are some of the things that are that need to be included in your district policy.
I'm done.
Okay. See a question here. See, Maribel, can this document be shared with district PFE contacts and administrators? Maribel, you talking about this district, this thing we're developing and presenting now, or are you?
The one pager, Skip.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes. That's why we sent it, so you could have it and so you can use it. And if you want to share it, go right ahead.
When the one that I got in the link didn't have in section 4 this extra part that you have with the little eyes, little I 2, 3, the little eyes. Is there an update one that has those extra 3 components entered?
I'll tell you, we haven't developed it. It's primarily because of space.
Okay, okay, okay,
Yes.
all right.
And,
But we'll
and
get
this,
it on the slide information like this, okay.
yes,
thanks.
this PowerPoint will be made available to you at the end of this session.
Thank you.
So that,
And Jennifer, please be aware too that the little I-1, 2, and 3 are also just straight out of law. So you can get those by just looking at the section 1116. Skip, can I just interject something real quick? You know,
yes,
the thing that Skip has covered, Beverly, you might need to mute. Beverly White, you need to mute your microphone. Anyway, one of the things that as you're talking about the district and the campus policies is really, it's only as good as the information that you put in it. You want this to be a living, breathing document, not just a shelf document. So that's why Skip's going through all of these. The more input you get from parents, you're not just identifying the barriers, but you're talking about ways to overcome those barriers. And you're looking at it throughout the year, figuring out ways that you can tweak it, make your program better. Because what happens, most people develop these documents, then they put it on a shelf and they never look at it again. But what we want is for you to make this very informative, not just meeting the intent of the law, but going much beyond that to actually talk about the ways the parents are going to be involved, the ways you're going to overcome the barriers. The more that you put into it, the more the parents are going to get out of it. Thanks, yeah.
May I, hi, this is Kalia from ESSA Region 20. Could I make a comment?
yes.
Okay, thanks, great. So thank you, first of all, for the one pager. It's great, I love it. And the links. I had a district client who kept focusing on the number of pages. And I kept telling her, well, you know, you should have these portions, but she wanted like, is there like, do I have to do 5? Can it be on 1? I'm like, well, let's think about a 1-pager. Would that be reasonable? You know, because it's really the quality, not the quantity is what I was telling her, but can you get everything in 1 page? I said, probably not. So I really appreciate that PFE policy template too, that y'all put on there. That's going to help. I want to just bring to the attention, because going back to just this, the number of pages in quantity, where I guess the second box where it says, what is the policy? I think it could be a little misleading because it just says the policy is a statement that describes the family engagement program for the school year. So I can see where maybe that specific client that I'm referring to might say, well, since it's a statement, you know, like they could interpret it as a statement being a sentence or 2. So I don't know if that was the intent of that, or maybe just what is a policy period, right? A policy is a statement. I just wanted to bring that up to your view.
I appreciate that. We can clarify that a little bit better. And certainly when this PowerPoint is placed in the ESC's only website and you all ask tweaks like that, if you think you need to tweak something here or there to make it more clear, I mean, we'll certainly look at that and make a change. But if there are things you think you need to tweak when you do your training and make your presentations, feel free to do so.
Thank you so much. And I actually have the tools under edit. So I'm like, on the PDF, and I changed, there was just a little misspelling there. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Next slide.
Here.
Oh,
Terry, I just wanted to say, I know that those are all policies, but I know from some of the dynamics I've had with my folks, they really press on where is it in policy, where is it in legal. So I greatly appreciate, as I'm learning all of the locations where all of these things are, all of these little extras, like those 3 eyes, those are super helpful to new people. So I greatly appreciate y'all adding those. Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. Okay, next, Katie. Okay, this here is a poll question. I need to bring it up. Hopefully you can see that question. An LEA receives Title I Part A funds. The district has 3 campuses, elementary, middle school, high school, and directs all the Title I Part A funds to the elementary. Do all 3 schools need to develop a PFE policy? Not up there. Oh, I read it. How about if you take a look at it now? There we go. Same question. There you go. I got to remember, if it's in green, you see it. If it's not in green, you don't see it. My apologies. So do all three schools need to develop a PFE policy?
Can I take my response back?
Give you about 10 more seconds. All right. Here are the results. I think you can see them. The more correct answer is, do all three campuses need to develop a PFE policy? The answer is actually no. No. Only the elementary school, since that's the one that's developing, that is receiving the Title I Part A funds, they're the ones that we are required to develop a parent and family engagement policy. The other two campuses could do so as a best practice. And like Terry said earlier, yes, the district would have to have a district policy, yes, but only the campus receiving Title I Part A funds would need to receive would need to develop a policy. All right.
I automatically say yes, and then I reread it, and that's where it actually doesn't say that the elementary campus is receiving Title I. So my question was going to be, which of those are receiving Title I Part A?
Well,
right?
It does say it, and it directs all the Title I Part A funds to the elementary.
Oh, which would then mean it's that elementary receiving.
Right.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Just learning.
Maybe a poorly worded, might be a poorly worded question. All right. Okay, thank you. Oh. Now another poll question for you to think about. Oh.
And I just want to say, I don't think it's poorly worded. I just think because y'all are so knowledgeable about it, it's like, it's all implied, right? And when I'm coming just from like, wait, I'm looking at these little words. So
right.
Please don't feel, not at all. I'm just trying to figure it out.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. Okay, a new poll question for you.
Claudia, though, that's really a good point for you to bring out to us.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But also, you know what, that's okay, because that's a good way to bring out conversation. So even if it seems like it's maybe worded differently, oftentimes TA will give us questions and they'll say it's kind of a trick question, and they want us, that it forces us to think about it. So anytime a question like that comes up, then it's good food for conversation, and use it accordingly to have some conversations with the people.
Absolutely. As long as you don't do anything that embarrasses me, okay? It's all right. No. No, you're right. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate that. You should see a new polling question. How many fall annual meetings is a school required to provide for its families? I'm glad to see that someone really likes my last goofy statement, provide all you can eat pizza and they will come. I'm glad someone likes that. Okay, we'll end the polling here. Looks like most people have replied. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Share the results. There we go. Yes, you are correct. A school must provide 2 fall annual meetings or more. They could be a combination of face-to-face or virtual, or both virtual, whatever, but 2 or more on different days, at different times of the day. And I was asked yesterday, where does it say that in statute? Again, it doesn't say that in statute, but just to clarify, we developed a one-pager last summer, in the summer of 2019. There was a committee of ESC folks, and Anita Villarreal from from TEA. And it was determined that we wanted to clarify that there will be 2 annual meetings in the fall. And that's why we included that 1-pager about meetings in the Title I toolkit. And just to let you know, I realize that portion of the statute might be open to interpretation, but that's how TEA has interpreted it. And TEA, as with any state, has the right to make the statute more rigorous if they think it needs to be, but they can't relax the statute. So that's where we come from with this. It's a decision that was made by a committee along with Anita Villarreal in the summer of 2019. All right.
Can I ask a clarification question on that?
You sure can, Zan.
The 2 meetings should share the same agenda, correct?
Yes, that would be correct.
Okay.
Same agenda, same content. Obviously, if one is live and one's face-to-face, the delivery will be different. But,
Right.
But yes.
Okay.
And another clarifying, okay. It's per campus, right? So like I have 5 campuses, then it would be 10 meetings.
That's correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's correct.
I clarify one thing as well. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. And I may have missed this. I've been taking a couple of calls. I'm sorry. But as far as it being, both of them being in the fall, is it okay for our districts to have one in the fall and one in the spring? That's what we've been communicating at different times of the day.
No, we're talking about 2 fall meetings.
This fall. Okay. Thank you.
And you will still want to have some sort of spring meeting when you do your evaluation and provide other information to your districts about funding, about your Title I program and how you're moving forward. Yes, there'll be some sort of spring meeting, and actually because TA is emphasizing multiple meetings, you'd want to have 2 meetings, but they specifically said 2 fall meetings.
Okay. And Skip, can I say something here? You know, the thing
Yes, Terry.
I think about you guys is, you know, we can get so hung up in the intent of the law. And as Jennifer said, a lot of people want to say, where's the law? And those are often those schools, for not trying to be critical, but that just want to meet the intent of the law. Okay, I did it, and then it's behind me. But what the reason for this is, we're trying to meet the needs of the parents. It's really about them, because the policy is only as good as the people who look at it, as the people that have input. So it really is best practice to do that. And that's why Anita put a lot of emphasis on that. For those of us that were around a few years ago, Cammie, you're right. We used to say fall and spring was kind of, but after there was some pushback to TEA made the decision, we can't make people have a spring meeting, but we certainly want to encourage it. We think it's good practice. But after looking at what the law says, where it says it's got to be multiple times and different times of the day and things like that, we really made the decision and got input from USDE, and they said that really did apply to just that fall meeting. So I know where you're coming from, Cammie, because that was what we used to say. So kind of the emphasis has changed now to be 2 meetings in the fall.
So even when COVID is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Even when COVID is over, will a virtual, if they do 1 virtual and 1 face-to-face, will that suffice?
They can, that's correct.
Okay.
Jaime, did you have something you wanted to say here?
I think Terry Jaime stepped away. He said he had another meeting to run to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Katie.
And Cammie, I would say that even when the coronavirus has passed, if a district or camp, talking about annual Title I meeting, a little off track here a little bit, it would be that if they wanted to continue doing virtual meetings because that school has better attendance at their virtual meetings, and we've heard that from a few campuses, that they're actually getting better attendance, and it's actually resulting in better understanding and participation early on. If they want to continue that practice of virtual meetings, as long as they're well done, they have an agenda, they have the proper documentation, they can move forward with virtual meetings. There's nothing to preclude virtual meetings in the future. That would be a school decision, a district decision as they move forward.
Thank y'all for clarifying that.
Yes. All right. A couple more questions, then I'll pass it back to Katie. But here, this question is just a yes, no question. Are parent advisory boards required at the district? If you think yes, raise your right hand, swing it in the air so I can see it. If you think yes, they are required. Oh, Claudia is not sure. Okay. If you think no, they're not required, raise your left hand. Okay. Some of you are. All right. Go ahead, Katie. Hit it. Well, the bottom line is no, they are not required, but implementing one is a best practice. It could be implemented at either the school level or at the district level. But what Katie said earlier, remember, whatever you do, you want to have a representative group of parents. No offense to our soccer moms or our white mom, our Caucasian mothers, but we don't want just to have white moms on this committee. We want to have a representative group of parents on this parent advisory board, whether it's at the school level or at the district level. One more question.
I have a question that I got yesterday.
Yes.
I did have a district, I guess they are doing district educational improvement committees and campus educational improvement committees. And though they asked if those count as parent involvement, and my understanding is those are not necessarily open meetings. Those are people that, those are the same parent over and over again that are set on a committee. So if it's more of a closed and not an open, does that count as parent? I know there are parents involved, but they wanted to know if that could count as their parent involvement. And I did question that because of the ability to really contribute feedback in those meetings. I just wanted your thought about, districts that are they're thinking if they're doing DEICs and CEICs, then we've got parent involvement covered.
My gut reaction is, without knowing more detail, and I probably need to talk to you a bit more about this, but my gut reaction is, and Terry might have a response to this, would be no, that would not adequately meet the needs of the PFE program. You might want to document that, make sure you have sign-in sheets and include that in your overall PFE documentation. But I would say no, that's probably not, like you said, they're not open meetings. You're probably not seeking input from or participation from the general parent and family population. And I don't know exactly how that's integrated into the overall Title I Part A program. So I would say no, but not knowing all the details, but that'd be my first reaction. Keep doing them and document it, but I would think that would not be sufficient in and of itself.
Thanks.
One more question. Yes or no? Does the LEA PFE policy need to be approved by the Board of Trustees? This is one that comes up frequently. If you think yes, the LEA PFE policy must be approved by the Board of Trustees, wave your hand vigorously. If you think it doesn't need to be approved by the Board of Trustees, raise your other hand vigorously. If you don't know and you don't care, just cross your arms. All right, here we go. This is it's not intended to be a trick question, but the answer is it depends. It depends. It depends because USDE does not require that the policy be approved by the Board of Trustees. TEA does not require that the policy be approved by the Board of Trustees. But if a district has a local policy and procedures manual that requires that the PFE policy or similar policies needs to be approved by the Board of Trustees, then yes, it needs to be approved by the Board of Trustees. If their policy and procedures manual does not require the PFE policy or similar policies to be approved by the Board of Trustees, then no, it doesn't need to be approved by the Board of Trustees. But it's always the best practice for the Board of Trustees, for the school board to know that there is a PFE policy, the content of the policy, and how this policy is, and this information is going to help drive the participation of parents, to build partnerships, to build decision makers, to build advocates. So it's a best practice for the school board to know, but it's not necessarily required. It is truly, and it depends.
You know, Skip, one of the things to bring out when he used the word similar policies, lots of school boards just the TASB policy and some of that, where it just has a blanket statement that says all policies must be approved. So what was happening is when they got audited, they looked at the PFI or PFE policy, because it's the word policy, they wrote them up if it hadn't been approved by the board. So people need to really examine their board policy. Like Skip said, it's a local policy, and it just makes this blanket statement that says all policies must be approved by the board. And because it's called a PFE policy, then that means it's got to be approved by the board. So they need to check that very carefully.
Well, y'all have been really asking great questions, and we're going to move on now. Katie's going to talk to us about what should be required at the school policy level. And we're on time, we're on track. But so this has been great. Thank you so much. So Katie, you begin to take over the lead.
All right, thank you, Skip. So we're going to talk about some of the minimum requirements for the school policy. And like Skip has said before, and how Terry's mentioned before, these are kind of some of the direct bullets that you need to focus on. And we don't go too in detail in the PowerPoint, but we just want to touch on them briefly. And then if you have further questions, feel free to ask us as well. So the first thing that your school policy needs to address in a minimum is how you're going to convene the 2 annual meetings, describe to the school and as well as how your school is participating in the Title I Part A program, as well as the rights of the parents. It also needs to include how you're going to offer a flexible number of meetings. This is not just annual meetings, but your other parent meetings as well. Try to provide as many days, as many times, even think about different locations. Try to provide maybe a central location to where all parents can have easier access, or you might be able to reach a broader audience. You also need to include parents in the planning. How are you going to include the parents in the planning, the review, and the improvement for your PFE policy? Are you going to have specific meetings for the inclusion of these parents? Just be as specific as you can with those activities. You also need to include timely information for the parents and the parent activities, as well as an explanation of the curriculum and the academic assessment. This is something that's covered in the annual 1 meeting. However, it's probably best practice for you to have other meetings outside of the annual meeting where you discuss curriculum and assessment, because you want to get feedback from the parents and you want to be able to collaborate with them on how the curriculum is working for their child, as well as what they can do to make sure that they're supporting your school and the students at home. And then we have submit parent comments about the school-wide program plan to the LEA. So this kind of goes back to the evaluations. Provide evaluation for parents to give that feedback. And if they do have feedback, you need to be able to provide this information back to the LEAs for their planning for the coming years. And then finally, the school parent compact that needs to be included in the school policy, how you're going to address the importance of communication between school and home, how you're going to provide this compact to your parents. Are you going to provide it on your website? For example, if you do provide it on your website, make sure that it is easily accessible, maybe on your homepage, or provide direct links to that school compact. You might also consider different ways to provide that school compact to your parents. You can do it outside of after school events, maybe a brochure form, have it mailed out to your parents, or during parent-teacher conferences. It really is a useful tool to refer back to because it does cover that curriculum and it does cover important information like your parent-teacher conferences.
I want to clarify the one piece or just about the school parent compact. According to the statute, the school compact is actually a part of the policy. Now, we know in terms of practice that most school districts, or I should say most campuses, have separated the policy from the compact. So Katie was absolutely correct that ideally it should be included in the policy. But we also know that in most cases it's treated as two separate documents, and that is acceptable to treat it as two separate documents. But what you said about the importance of the compact and how it applies to curriculum, she's on the mark there. So just wanted to, I didn't want anyone to say, oh my gosh, I don't have it in my policy. We understand. But ideally, in a perfect world, it would be a part of your policy, but it's okay if it's not. Sorry, Katie. Yeah.
No, thank you, Skip. All right. So we are going to move on with some more questions. All right, and I believe this is a poll. Oh. Give me just a second, I'm sorry. Actually, I think this was, we kind of got ahead of ourselves and this was covered, but we're gonna go ahead and go over this. So how many fall annual meetings is a school required to provide for their parents? And Skip did cover this earlier on. So we should all know the answer.
I got carried away. I stole your thunder there.
He stole my thunder. All right, guys. So at least 2 different meetings, 2 different days and times, either face-to-face or virtual. And if you still have further questions about those meetings or need help clarifying that to your LAs, please reach out to one of us and we can help you as well. All right, so let's go to our next question. And this is a poll. All right, so I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to put your answers in. Are schools required to explain curriculum and assessment to parents? All right, maybe about 5 more seconds. I see you putting your answers in. Let's see our results. All right, so the majority of us did say yes. This can be a little bit tricky. And our answer is yes, schools are required to explain curriculum to their parents. It is a best practice to cover it in the annual meeting. But like I said, sometimes these parents might have further questions or might need some further information about the curriculum. So provide different opportunities for those parents to ask those questions and cover those basic facts about your curriculum and your assessment. All right. And I am going to now hand this over to Skip, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about validations now.
Just stay on that slide there for a moment. Just stay there. Yes, what Katie was saying is correct. What you want to do, you want to make use of every opportunity to talk about your curriculum. So when you have that literacy night, when a school has a literacy night, you want to talk to the parents about how do you determine reading levels and what is the expectations for reading and writing skills so they can be better prepared for their STAR test. When you have your math night, again, talk to them about how do you, what is required in terms of the curriculum? What is the focus of our curriculum this year at a particular grade level? And again, how is that preparing your child for the STAR test? And what the parent can do then to help their child be more ready for that STAR test. So yes, actually talking about curriculum should become a norm, not just an activity or an event that we have to schedule, but it should be actually part of our normal conversation with our parents. And that's just something a school has to develop as a part of their culture, part of their identity, part of who they are, that we are about curriculum. We are about student success. We are about parent participation. We are about making a difference, and we together. And so it becomes a part of who you are. It's not just an event or a one-time thing. It's part of your school's identity. Sorry about that. I've got my little soapbox, but there you go. Next slide, thanks. you already have had this training or this information from TEA about the validations. I know there's another training coming up about the validations, but just to reinforce from the parent and family engagement piece, make sure that your schools, and that your school has a current parent and family engagement policy for the campus. Make sure that the year that it's on that policy is the correct year, not one from 4 years ago or 7 years ago. We run across those from time to time, and also make sure it's their own PFE policy. We run across an occasion where a school perhaps they think they're too busy to develop a policy, and they borrow one from a neighboring school district or from a neighboring campus at a different school district, and they incorporate that into their own policy, but they forget to change the name of the school on that policy, and you still see the name of the school from which they borrowed. And so I'm not encouraging that at all. Please get this right. I'm not saying they should borrow policies, but if they do, make sure that they at least get the right name and the right year on it, okay? Also, make sure that they have all the proper documentation, meeting agendas when they've had opportunities to meet with the parents, to meet with their families. So keep those agendas how you posted it and invited parents, invited people to participate, meeting notes, sign-in sheets, all the normal type of documentation. Be sure you just keep that up to date. Encourage your campuses and your district to keep that information up to date. Like I should say campus, because it's going to be a school that will be looked at. Obviously, you want to have information there, be able to provide information about how it was distributed to your parents and families. Maybe it was provided registration, provided in some way at an annual meeting. Since they're virtual, we have to be provided electronically, placed on the website, but placed on the website in an easy to access location for the parents. I don't know, I have gone to many websites to try to find the parent and family engagement policy, or to find the school parent compact. And I know what I'm looking for. And there are cases where I find it very difficult to find those documents, if you can find them at all. So encourage your schools to put them in easy to locate spots. How did you send the information out? By social media with links, by Facebook or Twitter, or other messages? Do you have the policy posted in a public area, outside the office, maybe in the foyer of the gymnasium, but in places where parents would frequent? Where do you have the policy posted? But you have just multiple ways in which the policy has been distributed and made available to parents, and also made available to the local community. Maybe you sent it to the local chamber of commerce, maybe you sent it to local businesses, maybe you provided it to various churches or places of worship, but maybe you've had a posting in a newspaper, like a PSA about the policy, but just need to make it available so the community knows about your overall PFE, Parent Family Engagement Program. So just keep a record of how it is you make that policy available and to your parents and to the broader community. All right, next slide. This one isn't about hands. This isn't a poll. This is if someone has the courage to give me a quick answer. How often must a PFE policy be evaluated? So I want to give a quick shout out.
By whom would be my question.
I did mine every year when I was a principal.
Yes. Claudia, I got your question. Annually. It must be evaluated annually by whether it's the school or the district or the school. They have to evaluate their program, the policy and their program annually. And that is what the statute says. An annual evaluation of the PFE policy. And yes, by whom? Well, as we've been saying all along, we need to have parent input. I mean, obviously you want to know what the staff are thinking. You want to know perhaps what certain community members are thinking, especially if you did programs that were involving community volunteers and such, but you definitely want to hear what the parents are thinking, but that's annually, right? Okay, new question. What must a district or school do with the findings from an evaluation Does someone want to give a shout out on this one?
They should consider them when they're doing their revisions.
Right? Okay. I'm going to back up one thing to what I see here in my chats. Yes, it was from Zan, at least in terms of how often you need to be evaluated. You'll notice Jan said at least yearly, but as often as needed. And Zan is absolutely correct. We shouldn't think of the evaluation merely as a one-time event. Okay, this is the day we evaluate our policy and our program. Yes, Zan's right. It really is an ongoing process. We should be looking at various pieces of data throughout the year. And if there are things we need to do to update our policy even as we go, then we go ahead and do that. So thank you, Zan, for sharing that. That's correct. So what must the district, Jennifer said that they use that data to develop these strategies, and that's exactly right. The statute says they are to design evidence-based PFE strategies. You use those findings to identify the barriers and then to develop new kinds of strategies and programs and activities and methods to overcome those barriers and to increase parent participation. And the real goal is for all of this is so that students will be successful. All right, thank you. And we're down to the home stretch here. So Katie?
All right, thank you guys so much again. We also wanted to provide you with a couple of more resources. We have the direct link right here to our parent and family engagement support website where you will find everything parent and family engagement. We also provided 2 other individual links that we did not include on the one-pager. And this is for documentation and evaluation for the school policy and then for the district policy. So you might want to go through those, and you can also, it's kind of like a checklist. So it's really helpful. It does get more in detail than maybe what we were able to provide today. Next, we have an FAQ for parent understanding. We do understand that parents are going to ask these questions about the policy and about PFE. And sometimes they struggle with kind of the verbiage that LEAs provide for them. This FAQ is very easy to understand. It has a variety of questions that parents might ask you with some suggested answers. You could use this to work with your parents or provide them answers later on down the road. Another excellent resource is the Title I Part A program guide. You can see that we highlighted pages 50 through 60. This is the PFE portion as a whole. A lot of the questions that we did provide today for our FAQs were pulled directly from this document. So again, if you need more details to those answers or you need to refer to it later, this is a great resource. And then next we have 2 videos thanks to Skip. He made a district policy video and a school policy video, and they also are available in Spanish. These 2 are also found on our website. And they're great resources, even just to help with your parents so that your parents have a better understanding.
Katie, you may also want to mention that we do have some sample compacts. We've got the district. We just updated the district so that's new just in the last couple of weeks. I do ask that you probably don't look at the sample campuses because Skip's getting ready to put up new ones. Those are out of date. So give us about, Skip, he can tell you in a minute about how long, but hopefully by the end of this week, he can get them up because we know that you'll want to look at some of those. But the district ones are already up and available. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Terry. And I see that Beverly has a question too. You're wondering if we could add the video links on the same lines for section 4 and 5. I think that's something that we can try to see as we take some of your suggestions on this one-pager. So you might see if we have a little bit of room was a little bit tight, we might try to add those on there. If not, they are on the website as well.